Allow me to ask you a very important question. Is it important as Christians that we study theology, that we seek to know God more or know more about God? Is that important? I just want to let you know I absolutely love theology, and by that, when I say theology, it sounds like a big $5 word. It's more than that. It's more than just a word used by folks in an ivory tower. The word has a meaning that should be made plain to anyone interested. Theology comes from two Greek words, theos, logos. But I want to take these cookies and I want to put them on the bottom shelf. I want everyone to see how simple this can be. Theos is the Greek word for God. Logos is the Greek word for word or statement. So theology is a word about God. Now you realize, or you should realize, that you probably do theology a lot more than you might have thought. When you say God is like or God does, at that point you're doing theology. The questions that theologians are burdened with, though, is that statement about God accurate? But before we can ask if it's accurate, we have a couple of other very important questions. First of all, is it even important to know God? If it is important, does it matter how well or how much I know about God? Does it matter if I'm completely accurate about those things I know about God? Would God care if I was inaccurate or wrong about any of the details that I attribute to Him? And what I'm going to do here is just try to address that first question. Is it important to know God? There's a couple of reasons why I think and why I know it's important to know God. First of all, let's just start with the point that God gave us the Bible. Now, God cares that we know who He is. The existence of the Bible is proof. The Bible answers a philosophical problem of knowledge that has plagued philosophers for centuries. So, here's the problem. How can I come to know something? And moreover, how can I come to know something for sure? Or even on top of that, how can I come to know anything at all? There's been two main answers given to these questions about knowledge. We can come to know something empirically. That is, we can come to know it by testing it with our five senses. You can smell, taste, touch, or hear. Or you can even see things. By doing this, we learn about those things. Namely, we learn what it looks like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, and on and on. What about the accuracy of our senses? Have your senses ever been deceived? If your sense of sight has ever been deceived, say by a magician or a mirage, then how can you be sure that it isn't always being deceived? You must say you honestly can't know 100% for sure that your sense of sight isn't always being deceived unless something other than your sight gives you that confirmation. And so this is how in history we got to the age of skepticism. There are skeptics, they held to this kind of reason. In fact, one of the fathers of graphing algebra, René Descartes, you might know him from the Cartesian coordinate plane if you took high school algebra. But René Descartes was so radical that he said, I can doubt everything. He was sitting there writing, he said, I can doubt the sky, I can doubt the existence of my house and my home, I can even doubt the pen that I'm writing with, I can even doubt the paper that I'm writing on. And the next thing he's sitting there writing, I can even doubt my own existence. And he stops right there and he said, wait a second, I cannot doubt my own existence because if I didn't exist, I wouldn't be here to doubt it. And so he coined the phrase cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am. In other words, he's saying, since I am here to doubt, I must exist. If I didn't exist, I wouldn't be able to doubt. So he's saying, I think, therefore I must exist, or I think, therefore I am. There's a second kind of knowledge, not empirical knowledge, but there's a second kind of knowledge that exists within our mind. It's called tautology. That's another big word. It's really fancy, but it's simple. Basically, it means definition. And how it works is it says we know the things that we define, such as how do you know that there's 5,280 feet in a mile? Well, the answer is we know it because we define it that way. There's nothing intrinsic about 5,280 feet that somehow make it a special number, and therefore we must call it a mile. We just define it. We say there are 12 inches in a foot, and therefore 1 foot, we can count out 12 inches. Or let's go to something else. When you say, what is a haircut? Well, it's the shortening of someone's hair. You didn't have to see or taste or touch a haircut or anything like that to define it that way. You're just restating the same thing with different words. It's called tautology, or definition. It becomes an empirical knowledge when we say things like, this stretch of road was 5,280 feet. Then we're taking our mental definition, we're applying them to things that we must experience through our senses. So we can't be sure about those things, but we can be sure about our tautology, or our definition. We can be as sure of it as we want to be because we're the ones that decide what it is. When you take those definitions and apply them to the empirical world, you got to be less sure of it. But then there's a third type of knowledge, a third way that we come to know things. And this third way is the most often overlooked because it's the least common. To understand, we must ask ourselves two questions. First, is there knowledge that's not inside my head, such as tautology? And second, is that same knowledge outside the realm of experience, such as touch, taste, or smell? Or another way of asking it would be, is that knowledge outside of the known universe? If we answer yes to these questions, then the third question comes along. How can we come to know such a knowledge? How do you come to know something that's outside your universe? The answer to this question is revelation. If something exists outside our realm of investigation, then the only way we could come to know about it if someone or something that carries that knowledge reveals it to us. And we can trust in that revelation only to the extent that we can trust the revealer. If the revealer is perfectly trustworthy, then we can perfectly trust what is being revealed. The very fact that God revealed himself in his word is ample proof that he wants us to know about him. God cannot be investigated with our senses or defined with our minds in a tautological sense. He can only be revealed to us, and he's the only one that can reveal himself. There's no one pointing a gun at God saying, hey, come out. There's no one that can force God to reveal himself. He does what he wills, what he desires. That's what God does. And the fact that he revealed himself reveals to us, we're looking at this, we know that because God revealed himself, he desires to be revealed. He desires to be known. I typically like to prove things with specific verses of the Bible, and I will. However, the best proof of this particular point is the entire Bible as a whole. However, there are some key scriptures that will indicate God's desire to be known. First of all, Deuteronomy 29 verse 29, it says, the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. Daniel 2:22 says, God reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. Matthew 11:27, you can compare it with Luke 10:22, but it says, all things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Galatians 1:16 is very striking because it states that God takes pleasure in revelation to individuals. Listen to this. It says, God was pleased to reveal his Son to me in order that I might preach him among the Gentiles.